Might, muscle and manpower as Bendigo Mining continues Victoria's gold rush history. For more than 150 years, the hills northwest of Melbourne helped to build Bendigo into the nation's golden city, and now Bendigo Mining is back.
Well, the main reef we've been mining now since June 2008 is the Gill Reef, and that's been the backbone of our production. But we've also been producing gold from several other reefs, including the Gill Reef, the Dale Reef, and just recently started mining in the Dean and Young Reef. So we have a suite of mining opportunities and mining positions underground now.
Bendigo is second only to Kalgoorlie as Australia's largest gold producing region, and Bendigo Mining aims to become a successful mid-tier gold producing company, achieving strong financial returns.
The company at the moment is particularly strongly placed because the business environment which we see ourselves in the moment is very strong for being a gold producer. The gold prices are strong, and our costs that we've seen inflating over the last few years are actually settled off a bit more recently. So we've got costs falling and the price of our commodity is rising.
Above the surface, cars drive down Bendigo's main street, but 1,000 metres beneath, teams of miners are once more realising the potential of the Bendigo goldfields.
We've been able to mine Gill Reef, discover Gill Reef and then mine it, and the prize is the grade of the material that we're extracting from it.
And they're finding excellent grade, with 1/4 of an ounce of gold per tonne of ore, already doubling production from the first quarter to the third quarter of the 2009 financial year.
Gill Reef is 900 metres long and is forming the basis and the core of our production over the next year. We're expecting to produce between 30 and 40,000 ounces in the next calendar year.
This white stripe above the tunnel is quartz, and in Bendigo, quartz contains gold. The workers use drilling and blasting techniques to extract the white quartz out of the reef, leaving the grey rock behind. And when it's done right, it's as if the gold wants to be found. It's hot, hard work, but modern technology in the form of massive million-dollar machines makes it much easier than the old days.
When we're mining Gill Reef, we drill holes with a twin boom jumbo, put explosives in, and then we charge them and fire those explosives so that we can dig them with a loader and then put it in a truck and truck that to the surface. That trip to the surface takes about 1 hour. It's a 7-kilometre trip to the surface and 7 kilometres back to Gill Reef.
And when the rock finally reaches sunlight, the process is far from over, moving on to the next stage of production.
We've got quite a flexible fleet because the scale and the size, dimensions of the reef vary quite significantly as we mine through them. We have to have flexible mining methods which are well suited to mining these variable reefs.
The material comes up from underground in trucks. It's deposited here on the ROM pad, and then we use a front end loader to load it into the crushing circuit. The crushing circuit consists of 2 stages of crushing, where we reduce the rock from about 600 millimetres down to about 25 millimetres and store it in a fine ore bin.
Massive rock cutting equipment chops through the quartz, discarding unwanted material, as the process intensifies to find the precious metal.
Behind me to my left is a fine ore bin, and that's where we store the material after it's been crushed down to 25 millimetres. That's to finish the first stage of our crushing section. Behind me to the right, in this building here, we use a high pressure grinding rolls to reduce the size further down to 4 millimetres before it goes onto the wet plant.
And from here it goes through tanks and pipes, and there's a lot of vibrating until it lands here in the gold room and on one of these sorting machines, which uses gravity and clever sorting systems until gold finally appears. But it doesn't stay like this for long. It's smelted into more appealing gold bars and ready to be sold. This processing plant has capacity to treat 600,000 tonnes of ore a year.
The gold industry to some extent is counter-cyclical, and so when things are bad, the gold price goes up, and so that's a real positive for our industry. In addition, production around the world has generally been falling away, so that also helps to push up the prices as supply drops off.
Australia's gold sector is on the rise, aided by the global financial crisis. As markets tumble, gold is seen as a stable, safe commodity.
The business side we're managing as best we can, but we acknowledge that there's fairly high business risk until we build up our reserve base. Therefore, we've got to balance that off and have low financial risk, and therefore that's why we've got a very substantial cash balance sitting on the books right now, and that supports our business.
While production methods have changed, the value of gold is just as important. When the Bendigo goldfields were discovered in 1851, thousands of Australians and immigrants flooded into town hoping to find their fortunes. Since then, some 18 million ounces of gold has been mined from beneath Bendigo.
Mining then ceased in around 1954, and then during the 1990s Bendigo Mining was formed to reopen the goldfield. The leases were consolidated, the company started developing underground in the late 1990s, and gold's been produced from the modern mine since around 2006.
But being local is still just as important. Bendigo Mining respects the local environment and community. Many of the company's shareholders are also its neighbours.
In excess of 2,000 shareholders live in and around Bendigo, so yeah, it's obviously very important and very good.
Financially, what we need to be doing is essentially continue to generate positive cash flow.
More than 60 years after the gold rush ended, Bendigo Mining is bucking the trend of the resources sector and increasing production.
It's very difficult to predict the future, but all the indicators out there are telling us that the price could move higher, so it's a great time to be a gold producer.
Always a good time to be in gold, and obviously it's a particularly good time at the moment.